Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's featured Reddit stories are from MaliciousCompliance. Story 1 today is by John Galt 314. My new favorite customer. I own and run a residential light commercial HVAC contracting company. We have a customer, we'll call him Tom, that contacted us for a residential breakdown. Tom told us he had a home warranty, and we informed him that their repayment policy is often different than our billing rates and that, regardless of the payment, he would be individually responsible for the full amount of the bill. The repair was a smallish fix for just $228. Bear in mind that home warranty companies are notoriously stingy with payments, if they pay at all. We won't work directly with them for this reason. Sure enough, the home warranty company paid for only $153 of the invoice, leaving a balance due of $75. Tom wasn't happy about having to pay this bill, so he began paying us $1 per week automatically by check through his online banking platform. Neither I nor my bookkeeper were exactly excited by this, because it takes the same amount of her time to process a $1 check as it does a $1,000 check, but we decided to take our lumps. Here we are now exactly 76 weeks later, and Mr. Tom has accidentally paid us $1 too much. So he put a stop payment on the final $1 check. I actually made it a point to look up the stop check payment policy from his bank and saw that he would have to pay $35 to do this. I honestly have nothing but respect for this amount of spite. What I don't understand about this story is why he's showing spite towards you guys. You warned him about home warranty things like this beforehand, and then he's going to pay you through spite? It's honestly a shame that he couldn't somehow show the spite towards them instead of you, because it's the insurance company, as it almost always is, that screwed him over. Down in the comments was another short story shared by Airy52. My mom did something similar to a credit card company. She thought she paid the balance in full, but turns out she still owed 2 cents. She called the company thinking they'll be reasonable, but nope. They make her send them a check for her remaining balance. So she sent them a check for 10 cents, and then they sent her a check for 8 cents. She'd get the check and then she'd shred it. They sent her so many checks for 8 cents over the years, it's hilarious how much money they've wasted over that original 2 cents. I used to work for somebody who was a serious penny pincher. That's why he was in the job that he was in. He basically managed the finances for the school that I used to work for, and I couldn't stand the guy. He was so... If he saw a way to yoink pennies from people, he would do it. He was such a horrible person, but really good at saving money and pinching pennies. But I guess that's what you want when money's tight. You don't care if they're nice, you only care if they're saving you bucks. Our next story is by Condiments for You. Condiments the Great. Hi all, Happy New Year's. In reviewing some of my best memories of the last few years, I remembered an incident of malicious compliance that I found overwhelmingly satisfying and thought it'd be worth sharing. While not as outrageous as some of the stories here, it left me feeling like I stuck it to our corporate overlords a bit. To set the stage, I moved back to the US to take a job at a pretty big firm where I was also tasked with executive assistant responsibilities. My boss would regularly send me downstairs to our local bank to pick up or deposit cash. Having newly moved back to the US, I needed to set up a bank account for direct deposits and figured the one downstairs makes sense. Also, it made depositing paychecks quicker and easier. On the day I went to open the account, the manager of the branch sat me down to go through all the paperwork. She was nice enough at first, and I got through everything quite quickly. That said, when it came to the signature portion, I thought I'd have a bit of fun with it and create a silly signature. Having just watched a Roman documentary the night before, I made my signature Condiments the Great. Obviously, I used my first name in place of condiments. The manager did not bat an eye at this, assuming she didn't read it, and she said she'd process everything and give me a call when my card was ready to collect. Cut to a little later, I received a call from the manager saying there's something wrong with the paperwork and I needed to come down to correct it. When I ask what the problem is, she says that I'm not allowed to have a signature like that and I need to redo it using my actual name. I say, okay, and then I'll be right down. This kind of pissed me off though, because I've seen wild signatures that hardly resemble letters, yet they were still accepted. I did some quick research and found that legally a signature can be any mark that I plan on using consistently, and it didn't have to be a name or even resemble letters. Being bored that day, I decided to press it and print out the laws regarding signatures and bring them with me to the bank. When I met the manager, I told her that I'd actually like to keep the signature as is and provided her with the documents I printed outlining the laws. She did not seem enthused at all and said she needed a moment to discuss with her superiors. A few minutes later, she comes back and says, "While I'm correct about the law, they require signatures to match the one on my driver's license, since that's the only one associated with me." I pushed back and mentioned I wanted to have a new signature, but she was firm on it matching my ID or they wouldn't open my account. Cue malicious compliance. I realized that since the state I moved to was different from the one I lived in before, I had to legally update my license. So I told the manager I'd think it over and get back to her soon. I hurried upstairs and made a DMV appointment for later that week to get a new license. The day of the DMV appointment, I brought everything I needed to ensure I walked out with a new license. When it was time to provide a signature for the license, I again wrote, "Condiments the Great," and was again met with pushback. The teller literally said, "Sir, this is the DMV and we don't play games like that." Well, I whipped out the law to show them that I'm actually allowed to use this as my signature, and the teller's ego deflated real fast. Long story short, I walked out that day with a shiny new license and my new signature. I drove directly from the DMV back to the bank and met with the teller. I told her that I will agree to sign the documents using the same signature on my license. I don't think she could have looked any more smug. She took me back to the office and sat me down to re-sign the documents, and I did so as Condiments the Great. When she saw this, she practically started shouting about how I'm wasting their time and either need to get serious or they'll have me escorted out. This is when I slowly removed my brand new ID and slid it across the desk. Her face went blank and I honestly couldn't tell what she was thinking. She asked me to leave the office for a moment so she could make a call. 10 minutes later, she comes out and says, while my signature does match the one on my license, they are just refusing to do business with me and asked me to leave. Not knowing the legality of that, I said okay and accepted defeat. I walked back up to my office and told my boss that they're not allowing me to open an account. I told him the full story, and he actually found it hilarious. He then said that he'd handle it. Later that day, I received a call from the bank saying they changed their mind and they've opened the checking and savings accounts I requested. I went to speak with my boss after, who said that he had a productive chat with the manager. Knowing how much business he provides the bank, he was happy enough to bluff on my behalf. He essentially told the manager that not allowing me to open an account was directly affecting his business and that if they don't oblige, he'd close his accounts and take his business elsewhere. Apparently, that threat hit hard and the manager quickly backtracked, saying they'd never refuse my business. Just had to get approval from upper management. At the end of the day, I was victorious and still use this signature on all official documents. It's a bit silly, but it's my trophy and a good conversation starter. I understand why they have these rules in place. They want to make sure nobody's going to fake being somebody. But if the guy is there and he wants to open a bank account and he literally went out and changed his name on his license so that it matches, you're not losing anything by letting him sign up. If somebody wants to make their official signature have stars and unicorns with it, they can do that, as long as it's what they regularly use to sign with. And if he changed it and said, I want to use this all the time, they're not doing anything but losing business by refusing him. I love that your boss supported you in this and just found it funny instead. And you also work for somebody who is powerful enough and rich enough that they could put the pressure on the bank to change their ways. That's the icing on the cake right there. Our last story today is a short one, but it also has a story reply to it by Amethyst 6. How to avoid cleaning a hot attic. My grandpa told the story from when he was young and in military, mandatory for men in Finland. The group he was in had been recently reprimanded on how they shouldn't do anything they were not ordered to do. Soon after, they were tasked to clean out an attic. It was a hot summer day, so it was like a badly warmed sauna up there. My grandpa was ordered to go take the trash to the dumpsters, so he went and did exactly that, to the letter. Instead of coming back, he sat down near the dumpsters. Couple hours later, the person in command came looking for him and asked him why he was there and didn't come back to clean the attic. Grandpa's answer was simple. I was ordered to take the trash to the dumpster. No one told me to come back. He received no punishment and is still smug about it after almost 70 years. That is hilarious because his group got reprimanded for how they shouldn't do anything they were not ordered to do, and so he's just following orders doing that. If they really want to be that nitpicky about it, they should have said, take this stuff down to the dumpster, come back and help clean up the attic afterwards. But nobody wants to be stuck in a really stale-smelling, sauna-hot attic during the summertime. Your grandpa was just doing exactly as he was told and not a step more, because he shouldn't do anything he was not told to do. And down in the comments by From Anderson. This isn't quite as good as your grandpa's story, but when I was the new kid on an electrical crew, the experienced hands were always trying to send me to get things that didn't exist. Left-handed screwdrivers, metric pliers, cable stretcher, etc. I already knew most of it was just them pulling a prank, but they had nicknames for things that I hadn't heard before, so they got me a couple of times. One day we were pulling in some very heavy cable. It was the main power cables that fed a large school building. More accurately, a winch was pulling. We were unspooling the cable, holding it over our heads and slowly walking to where the underground pipe was. It was super hot that day, and we were all miserable. Just as I'd let go of the cable and was walking back to the end of the line again, one guy who was always giving me a hard time told me to go grab him some nonsense thing. I knew it didn't exist and was about to say as much when I realized two things. 1, I was just about to pass the door into the building. 2, this was the perfect opportunity to play dumb and go take a break. I darted through the door and was gone before anyone thought to stop me. I headed straight for the opposite end of the building where I knew nothing was going on that day and had myself a very nice little break before I came back. Usually those guys would laugh at getting one over on the new kid. They didn't think it was quite so funny that day. I may not have been an experienced hand, but I was young and strong. Those guys were all in their 40s and 50s. My absence was felt, literally. Apparently, he got told off for sending me away in the middle of the job. That was in the early 90s, and I'm still just a bit smug about that one. It was pretty unwise of this guy to pick a time where everyone was miserable and give the new guy a chance to escape that somehow. I love it when somebody tries to prank somebody and it basically backfires. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a great day.